A very good afternoon. This is Avinindra Som and you're listening to the news in detail on Gold FM.
The news headlines on Gold FM.
Public transport in Western Province crippled as fuel prices soar. Fuel distribution returns to normal across the island. Former Minister Ranatunga and brother indicted. ADB President arrives in Sri Lanka. Iran threatens to attack Mideast electrical plants, buffering US bases. World faces worst energy crisis in decades. IEA chief warns.
The top story on Gold FM.
Thousands of passengers remain stranded today following a sharp rise in fuel prices that has crippled transport services nationwide. In the Western Province, the Road Passenger Transport Authority reported that only 40% of the usual bus fleet was operating this morning. This shortage has left workers and school children facing immense difficulties with long queues and severely overcrowded buses and trains during the morning rush hour. Now, the crisis follows a demand from the Lanka Private Bus Owners Association for a 15% fare increase to offset rising costs. While the National Transport Commission has proposed a fare hike of over 10%, the final decision rests with the Cabinet of Ministers, which is scheduled to meet later today. Operators have warned that services will remain limited until the government approves the new rates. Yamnu Vijayaratna of the Private Bus Owners Association and Sarath Vijitakumar of the Interprovincial Association both stressed the urgent need for fare revisions. Meanwhile, National Transport Commission Director General Nilan Miranda confirmed the recommendations have been submitted to the Cabinet, with implementation expected as soon as approval is granted. Railway unions have also reported ongoing disruptions to train schedules, further complicating travel for commuters seeking alternative transport.
This is the local news on Gold FM.
Authorities continue to enforce the fuel rationing system today, limiting supply strictly to vehicles with odd-numbered plates. While many filling stations across the island reported shorter queues, significant congestion remains in areas including Colombo, Peliata and Galle. Despite steady distribution from the Kolonnava terminals, several stations in Bandaragam and Badulla remain closed due to a lack of stock. Now, in a major enforcement drive, police arrested multiple individuals for the illegal possession and transport of fuel without valid permits. Officers in Bakamuna detained a 46-year-old man last night carrying nearly 400 litres of diesel and petrol. Similar raids in Maharagama, Nitambur and Norwood led to the seizure of hundreds of litres of fuel hidden in retail shops and private residencies. The largest discovery occurred in Urelu, Jaffna, where officials recovered over 5,000 litres of illegally stored diesel, petrol and kerosene. Farmers in major agricultural hubs such as Dambul and Tambuttegam reported a severe crisis as fuel price hikes have prevented them from transporting produce to markets. Growers and traders warn that a lack of transport along with dwindling customer numbers is threatening their livelihoods. This pressure extends to the transport sector, where the National Joint Three-Wheeler Drivers and Industry Association is seeking a 20 rupee increase for the first kilometre. Now, meanwhile, school transport providers are demanding a guaranteed daily fuel quota to keep their services running. The construction industry is also facing a standstill, with the National Construction Association of Sri Lanka citing the fuel crisis as a primary cause of the sector's decline. While postal unions claim that 40,000 mail bags remain undelivered due to transport issues, the Postmaster General has denied any significant backlog. Amid these disruptions, the Ministry of Health has directed state hospitals to issue 2 months' worth of clinic medicine at once. Deputy Health Minister Dr. Hansaka Vijayamuni stated that this measure aims to help patients manage fuel shortages, with stock distribution already underway to hospitals currently facing low supplies. Colombo High Court released former Minister Arjuna Ranatunga and former Ceylon Petroleum Corporation Chairman Dhammik Ranatunga on bail following the indictments today. Each defendant was released on two personal bails of 5 million rupees each, with court scheduling for the next hearing on the 15th of May. The charges follow allegations that the pair caused an 800 million rupee loss to the corporation between 2017 and 2018. Prosecutors claim the duo cancelled 3 scheduled petroleum purchase tenders over 6 months, opting instead for 27 spot tenders at significantly higher prices. Asian Development Bank President Masato Kanda arrived in Sri Lanka this morning for an official visit aimed at guiding the nation from crisis response to its sustainable recovery. Minister of Labour and Deputy Minister of Finance Anil Jayantha Fernando received the bank chief at the airport to begin high-level talks. Kanda described the timing of his arrival as a critical moment for the country as it seeks to stabilize its financial future. The visit includes scheduled engagements with government representatives, private sector leaders, and local communities to identify development priorities.
Now for some news in brief.
The Department of Meteorology forecast showers or thunder showers at several places in the western and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in Galle, Matara and Nuwara districts after 2 p.m.
The business news on Gold FM.
Global oil prices fluctuated today as traders weighed the escalating military threats against the sudden release of millions of barrels of Iranian crude. Brent futures rose $1.09 to $113.04 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate climbed $1.75 to $99.95.
International news on Gold FM.
The streets of Iranian cities remain volatile as anti-government demonstrations meet a fierce and unrelenting crackdown by state security forces. Western nations have been quick to condemn the violence, framing it as an authoritarian assault on human rights. But some international relations analysts warn that viewing the crisis purely through a moral lens dangerously misreads the reality on the ground. Professor John Mearsheimer, a prominent US political analyst, argues that to understand the violence, we must first look at the foundation of the unrest, an economic push to the brink.
These protests began over a currency crisis and spiraling inflation. When purchasing power evaporates and when an economy bleeds to death under the strain of Western sanctions, legitimacy erodes. Power is not built on words. It is built on the ability to provide resources and maintain order. When those resources dry up, the state must resort to the rawest tool in its arsenal: coercion.
While Western observers decry the government's heavy-handed tactics, the professor points out that for the Iranian regime, this is no longer about public policy. It is rather about existential survival.
Most of the newspapers you read call the crackdown a mistake or brutality. But look at the mechanism. A state, by Max Weber's definition, requires a monopoly on the legitimate use of physical violence within a territory. When government buildings are set on fire and statues of General Soleimani are vandalized, that monopoly is being directly challenged. For a leader like Khamenei, tolerance is not a virtue. It is strategic suicide. If he backs down even an inch, the internal balance of power collapses, and what the Western elite calls dialogue quickly turns into a Libya or Syria-style scenario. You have to understand, states act out of fear. The Iranian regime looks at what happened to Saddam Hussein. They look at Muammar Gaddafi. They know that losing internal control leads to death. For the regime, staying in power is not just politics. It is survival. The internet blackout is a calculated tactical move to break the opposition's command and control.
But Mearsheimer argues that this Western rhetoric is creating a perilous situation for the very people it claims to support, drawing stark parallels to past foreign policy interventions in Eastern Europe.
President Trump and the Washington elite are playing a remarkably dangerous game. They encourage the protesters, they pledge aid, and they threaten to hit them very hard if Iran uses lethal force. Washington is creating a classic moral hazard. They are inciting ordinary Iranians to confront a battle-hardened security apparatus while knowing full well they are not going to send the Marines to save them when the shootings start. We have seen this movie before. Think back to 2008 when we promised NATO membership to Georgia and Ukraine. We gave them false hope, encouraged them to poke the bear, and when the tanks rolled in, we stood by and sent thoughts and prayers. When Washington labels the protests as something they support, it does not help the Iranian people. It simply hands Tehran a perfect strategic justification to brand the protesters as traitors and agents of foreign adversaries. China and Russia are watching this closely. To them, instability in Iran is further proof of American interference designed to destroy regional competitors. This will only drive them to tighten their alliances with Tehran. If Iran falls into chaos, the entire region catches fire, a result that even the hawks in Washington should fear if they had any strategic sense.
This geopolitical maneuvering, Mershema warns, leaves the Iranian public caught in the crossfire.
The government will not compromise because they view compromise as surrender. They will escalate the repression, and the cost will be thousands of lives and an economy further destroyed. Washington will continue to shout empty slogans about freedom while using the Iranian people as pawns in a geopolitical game to weaken a regional peer.
Expanding on this grim forecast, Professor Mershema concludes that this tragedy unfolding in Iran exposes a fundamental and deadly flaw in Western foreign policy.
The government will not compromise because they view compromise as surrender. They will escalate the repression, and the cost will be thousands of lives and an economy further destroyed. Washington will continue to shout empty slogans about freedom while using the Iranian people as pawns in a geopolitical game to weaken a regional peer. In this anarchic system, weak or internally divided states will always become the battleground for great powers. The West's naivety in believing they can cheerlead a revolution without causing a humanitarian catastrophe is intellectually irresponsible. We are witnessing the collapse of the illusion that values can substitute for power. The reality is that guns and ruthlessness will decide who is left standing.
Now, in the meantime, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps warned it will target electrical plants in regional countries that supply power to American military bases. This threat follows an ultimatum from President Donald Trump, who gave Tehran 48 hours to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face the destruction of its own energy infrastructure. Iranian military officials stated that any strike on their power grid will trigger an immediate and irreversible retaliation against energy and water desalination facilities across the Middle East. Military commanders in Tehran stated that the Strait of Hormuz will remain completely closed until any destroyed Iranian power plants are rebuilt. This escalation comes as the Israeli military confirmed a fresh wave of strikes against what it calls the terror infrastructure in the Iranian capital. While the US and UK push for the reopening of the vital shipping lane, Iran maintains that the waterway is only closed to those who violate its territory. Over in Israel, the military warned that the conflict against Iran and its proxies in Lebanon could continue for several more weeks. This follows a missile strike on residential areas in the southern town of Dimona, which left dozens injured and caused extensive damage to civilian homes. Regional tension is growing as the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain report responding to missile alerts and falling debris in residential areas. The International Energy Agency reported that at least 40 energy assets across 9 countries have already sustained severe damage. A ground stop remains in effect at New York's LaGuardia Airport following a collision between an Air Canada Express regional jet and a ground vehicle earlier today. Federal aviation officials diverted all arriving flights as emergency teams responded to the site where the Montreal-based aircraft sustained damage during its landing.
Entertainment news on Gold FM.
Amazon MGM Studios secured the biggest global opening of 2026 for an NBA title after Project Hail Mary earned $140.9 million worldwide. The Space Epic outperformed the launch of Screen 7, representing a significant victory for the non-franchise cinema, despite a net production cost of $190 million.
Sports News on Gold FM.
World number 1 Carlos Alcaraz exited the Miami Open in the third round following a surprise 6-3, 5-7, 6-4 defeat against Sebastian Corda. The 22-year-old top seed struggled through a sloppy first set which gifted the American an early initiative. Corda appeared to squander his opportunity during the second set when he failed to hold serve for the match at 5-4. And that's all the news for now. Stay tuned to Gold FM for the latest updates. This is Avinindra Soma for Gold FM News. Have a great day ahead.